in which an affair unfolds, and we see the damage wrought upon the scorned. Chapter 14. Approaching his house in the cheerfulest spirits, Levine heard a bell from the direction of the main entrance. Yes, it's from the railway station, he thought. Exactly the time of the Moscow train. Who could it be? What if it was my brother Nikolai? He did say, maybe I'll go to a watering place, or maybe I'll come to you. He found it frightening and unpleasant at the first moment that the presence of his brother might spoil this happy spring mood of his. Then he became ashamed of this feeling and at once opened, as it were, his inner embrace, and with tender joy now expected and wished it to be his brother. He urged the horse on, and, passing the acacia tree, saw the hired troika driving up the railway station with a gentleman in a fur coat. It was not his brother. Ah, if only it's someone pleasant that I can talk with, he thought. Ah, Levine cried joyfully, raising both arms high. What a delightful guest! Oh, I'm so glad it's you, he called out, recognizing Stepan Arkadyevich. I'll find out for certain whether she's married or when she's going to be, he thought. And on that beautiful spring day, he felt that the memory of her was not painful for him at all. What? You didn't expect me? Said Stepan Arkadyevich, getting out of the sled with flecks of mud on the bridge of his nose, his cheeks, and his eyebrow, but radiating health and good cheer. I've come, 1, to see you, he said, embracing and kissing him, and 2, to do some fowling, and 3, to sell a wood in Yergoshovo. Splendid! And what a spring, eh? How did you make it by sledge? It's even worse by cart, Konstantin Dmitrich, replied the coachman, whom he knew. Well, I'm very, very glad you've come, Levine said with a sincere and childishly joyful smile. Levine led his guest to the visitor's bedroom, where Stepan Arkadyevich's belongings were also brought. A bag, a gun in a case, a pouch for cigars, and leaving him to wash and change, went meanwhile to the office to give orders about the plowing and the clover. Agafya Mikhailovna, always very concerned for the honor of the house, met him in the front hall with questions about dinner. Do as you like, only be quick, he said, and went to the steward. When he returned, Stepan Arkadyevich, washed, combed, with a radiant smile, was coming out of his door, and together they went upstairs. Well, how glad I am that I got to you. Now I'll understand what these mysteries are that you perform here. No, really, I envy you. What a house! How nice it all is, bright, cheerful, Stepan Arkadyevich said, forgetting that it was not always spring and a clear day like that day. And your nanny's such a dear. A pretty maid in a little apron would be preferable, but with your monasticism and strict style, it's quite all right. Stepan Arkadyevich brought much interesting news, and one piece of news especially interesting for Levine, that his brother Sergei Ivanovitch was going to come to him in the country for the summer. Stepan Arkadyevich did not say a single word about Kitty, or generally about the Shabbatskys. He only gave him greetings from his wife. Levine was grateful to him for his delicacy, and was very glad of his guest. As always during his time of solitude, he had accumulated a mass of thoughts and feelings that he could not share with anyone around him, and now he poured into Stepan Arkadyevich his poetic joy of spring, his failures and plans for the estate, his thoughts and observations about the books he was reading, and in particular the idea of his own book, which was based, though he did not notice it, on a critique of all the old books on farming. Stepan Arkadyevich, always nice, understanding everything from a hint, was especially nice during this visit, and Levin also noticed in him a new trait of respect and a kind of tenderness towards himself, which he found flattering. The efforts of Agafya Mikhailovna and the cook to make an especially good dinner had as their only result that the two hungry friends, sitting down to the hors d'oeuvres, ate their fill of bread and butter, politok and pickled mushrooms, and that Levin ordered the soup served without the piroshki with which the cook had wanted especially to surprise the guest. But Stepan Arkadyevich, though accustomed to different dinners, found everything excellent. The herb liqueur, the bread and butter, and especially the politok, the mushrooms, the nettle soup, the chicken with white sauce, and the white Crimean wine. Everything was excellent and wonderful. "Splendid, splendid," he said, lighting up a fat cigarette after the roast. "Here it's just as if, after the noise and vibration of a steamer, I've landed on a quiet shore. So you say that the element of the worker himself must be studied and serve as a guide in the choice of farming methods. I'm not an initiate, but it seems to me that the theory and its application will influence the worker himself." "Yes, but wait. I'm not talking about political economy. I'm talking about scientific farming. It must be like a natural science, observing given phenomenon, and the worker with his economic, ethnographic." Just then, Agafya Mikhailovna came in with the preserves. "Well, Agafya Mikhailovna," Stepan Arkadyevich said to her, kissing the tips of his plump fingers, "what politok you have! What herb liqueur! But say, Kostya, isn't it time?" he added. Levin looked out of the window at the sun setting beyond the bare treetops of the forest. It's time, he said. "Kuzma, harness the trap," and he ran downstairs. Stepan Arkadyevich, having come down, carefully removed the canvas cover from the varnished box himself, and, opening it, began to assemble his expensive, new-fashioned gun. Kuzma, already scenting a big tip for vodka, would not leave Stepan Arkadyevich, and helped him on with his stockings and boots, which Stepan Arkadyevich willingly allowed him to do. "Kostya, tell them if the merchant Ryabinin comes. I told him to come today. They should receive him and have him wait." "Are you selling the wood to Ryabinin?" "Yes, do you know him?" "That I do. I've dealt with him positively and finally." Stepan Arkadyevich laughed. Positively and finally were the merchant's favorite words. "Yes, he has a funny way of talking. She knows where her master's going," he added, patting Laska, who was fidgeting around Levin with little squeals, licking now his hand, now his boots and gun. The trap was already standing by the porch when they came out. "I told them to harness up, though it's not far. Or shall we go on foot?" "No, better to drive," said Stepan Arkadyevich, going up to the trap. He got in, wrapped his legs in a tiger rug, and lit a cigar. "How is it you don't smoke? A cigar, it's not so much a pleasure as the crown and hallmark of pleasure. This is the life. How good. This is how I'd like to live." "Who's stopping you?" said Levin, smiling. "No, you're a lucky man. You have everything you love. You love horses, and you have them. Dogs, you have them. Hunting, you have it. Farming, you have it. Maybe it's because I rejoice over what I have and don't grieve over what I don't have," said Levin, remembering Kitty. Stepan Arkadyevich understood, looked at him, but said nothing. Levin was grateful to Oblonsky for noticing, with his usual tact, that he was afraid of talking about the Sherbatskys, and saying nothing about them. But now Levine wanted to find out what tormented him so, and did not dare to begin. "Well, and how are things with you?" Levine said, thinking how wrong it was on his part to think only of himself. Stepan Arkadyev's eyes twinkled merrily. "You don't accept that one can like sweet rolls when one has a daily ration of bread. In your opinion, it's a crime, but I don't accept life without love," he said, understanding Levine's question in his own way. "No help for it, that's how I'm made, and really it brings so little harm to anyone, and so much pleasure for oneself." "What? Is there something new?" asked Levine. "There is, brother. Look, you know there's this type of oceanic women you see in your dreams, but these women exist in reality, and these women are terrible. Woman, you see, it's such a subject that however much you study her, there'll always be something new." "Better not to study, then." "No, some mathematician said that the pleasure lies not in discovering the truth, but in searching for it." Levine listened silently, and despite all his efforts, was simply unable to get inside his friend's soul and understand his feelings, or the charms of studying such women. If you enjoy this format, please leave a like and subscribe and return tomorrow for the next chapter.